Johnson, and this is focused on Liberia. Hit it! From Kemau to Kepamo, Mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Ja.
And I am Anthony Sie. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is our program, FOL Justice Forum. It's a program dedicated to providing education, understanding on legal issues confronting the nation Liberia. I can't welcome you enough, folks in cyberspace. Do us that favor. Share the broadcast with somebody. The issue of land in Liberia, we all know, is something that people are not happy about because of the way it's being handled. Land being sold 2-3 times to different people. I've heard a lot of stories, and you have too. And probably some of you listening to me might have had similar experience. So we want to understand the whole issue of land ownership, land right, and so on and so forth. And also some current events happening concerning land matters in Liberia. To do so, we have 3 legal minds comfortably seated to provide some understanding for us concerning the issue of land. Seated and ready to go is Focus on Liberia legal analyst, Councillor Frederick Jewell. He joins us from Colorado. Councillor Jewell, it's good to have you. How you doing? How's family?
I'm doing fine, Dennis. I'm calling you Dennis. I'm doing fine. Yes. Thanks for inviting me. Everybody else is okay.
That is good to hear. Anthony James and Johnson is also here. Always here when we are discussing legal matters from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. I don't think if Liberians are feeling so much love about the land issue in Liberia, James, talk to me. How are you as family, brother?
Well, praise God. Today is Sunday. I'm glad to be alive and to be among the living. And to you guys too, I'm glad to be with all of you to discuss. This is a very important issue that we cannot end the discussion. This is about property law in Liberia. And so ownership and land rights. Yeah, we can throw words and see whether we can discuss the issue that will provide some answers. why we will not be advising those out there because they need to find a lawyer if they have crisis pertaining to their land, but at least we'll have an idea of what probably we can say here tonight.
Thank you so much. Anthony Wanda Konyene Freeman is also here to help us provide some understanding and share his perspective on this very serious matter happening in Liberia, the issue of land. It's good to have you. We share the same state. That is the beautiful state of Minnesota. We are in the Twin Cities. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm great and excited to be on. It's nice to talk about the land problems. This has been ongoing for decades now, so it's not new, but people always maintain interest in that because everybody would love to have at least a piece of land they call theirs.
Thank you. Councillor Joel will get us started, and Councillor, educate us here on the land ownership. How can one get in possession of a land to have ownership to it? And briefly provide some education for us on the 4 categories of land ownerships in Liberia.
So let's begin with people or Liberians living from here, mostly returning home and trying to buy a piece of property for themselves, which is a noble thing to do. As they work, spend their time, work, make some money, they want to establish themselves back into Liberia by building homes and whatnot. But in order to do so, it is important to know the category of land ownership in Liberia. How do you go about acquiring land and from whom? So under the Liberian Land Right Act of July 3rd, July 3, 2014, there are 4 categories listed. And they are listed for a particular reason. And I will go over there and then try to go into the reason. The first is that there is a public land. The first category is public land. The second is government land. The third is customary land. And the fourth is private land. Why is it that the law listed them as they are? They are supposed to give notice to buyers, would-be buyers, or would-be property owners. Where do you go to acquire your land? If the government of Liberia is not selling the land to you, then you don't have a public land or a government land that's being sold out. If you went, I understand a lot of Liberians are going home and saying they are buying farmland. So if you went to 1 or 2 villages or some of the villages in Liberia and you try to acquire land from the community, you might likely run into buying land that might be customary land or community land. And that also has legal reason and requirement behind it. Or you may be buying land from a property owner, which is a private person or private people could be selling land. You could go ahead and be buying the land. And if you bought such land, the question is, what is the difference in buying a government land sold out vis-a-vis a land sold by a private person? What are the challenges? What are the issues surrounding just buying property that people call private land? And what impact does it have on you, even though you might have bought such land 10, 20 years ago and built on it, develop it to a certain point? The question is, did you buy the land from the rightful people who perhaps have the authority to sell the land? Or did you buy the land that could be challenged, like in the case of the Catholic community, where over 200 houses were demolished? Recently, I understand by order of the Supreme Court, there's a judgment from the Supreme Court, and the civil law court demanded and ordered the the judgment in full. So these categories are very important because it will determine where you fall and what legal issues that may arise as a result of what type of land you have.
All right. That is very, very important. And thanks for that education. And let me come to you, Anthony Jensen. So we know now that there are four categories of land ownership: might be land that you obtain from the government, maybe a public land, or customary land, or private land. Are people running into trouble irrespective of how you got the land or the ownership of the land, whether you got it from private, customary means?
Well, firstly, let me add to what the counselor said.
Okay.
The Constitution of Liberia grants every Liberian the opportunity to own or to buy a piece of property, land.
Mm-hmm.
And that right is guarded by law. And there are procedural steps as to how someone's supposed to acquire a piece of land. Any Liberian can own the land, can buy the land, whether you call it public land, private land, customary land. The government of Liberia is the owner of the landmark of the country. The government of Liberia owns the country. However, every citizen of the country has a right to own the land. But you don't just get up and go on someone else's property, go to a place and you find, it's okay, this is my property. Customarily, like in the interior side, there's a historical pattern as to how people have owned customary land in Liberia. That has problem as we speak. There are people who lived customarily on a piece of property that was assigned to them. And some of those people do not have paper right. But indeed, by tradition, if you go, they say, oh, this quarter belongs to this group of people. There are historical records as to who are those that own this quarter. And so it is with other aspect of some of the interior side. Now, when it comes to private land, church institutions, organizations also have right to purchase private land. But there are always reasons why. For example, any organization from abroad can go to Liberia and say, well, we want to open a school, we want to establish a church, and by that, they can purchase a private land. But that land will be used solely for the purpose for which they have intended to buy the land. All of these things we're talking about, they are controlled by law. So as to whether or not there are conflicts growing as a result of people desiring to purchase land, yes, there are numerous of problems and conflicts. But let me hasten to say, if Liberia cannot have honest officials, land crisis may one day lead to a serious conflict. I was in Liberia and I have few land cases that hold a Mount Barclay. There's a family there. That's a big issue that we had. So I know a lot about what is happening in Liberia when it comes to land conflict. So if you don't have honest leaders from the president clean down, if you have dishonest people who are not sincere with themselves first, and to be sincere with the people of Liberia, that will extend even to lawyers that will preside over cases in the distribution or giving people the right of ownership. People are duplicating these. There's so much confusion in Liberia, and that extends to people who even leave from America and want to go buy that piece of land. Liberians in America and other Western countries come here, they labor hard, and they want to go and purchase land. And by the time you get into Liberia, everybody want to sell land. Everybody want to provide some deed. Everybody get ownership. So when you do not have honest people, especially so lawyers, dishonesty, even there are land conflict among lawyers. That's how problematic this land business is. Maybe we'll talk about what is happening right now. Maybe the idea came from what we're hearing from the Single Belt. I know I'm from the Assembly of God Church. I know that Single Age Church. Behind there have been, that's a year-long conflict. When I was a child in Morovia, I know for certain that there was a conflict behind that whole place. I was not involved. I don't know. I have no detail about that place. So for a new government that will just come up and start breaking down places, it means there's a motive. There are some people today who can only wait to have their relative into power, and then they can go and start fighting for land.
Thank you, Anthony Johnson. And Anthony Freeman. So we got the urban areas, and you look at other counties. Is this widespread in Liberia, or is more so prevalent near Monserrato County and other counties nearby, and the land crashes that we see?
Well, from my experience, it's all across the country.
Okay.
I mean, because commercial activity is high in Morovia, so you have a lot more cases. But as other areas kind of improve commercially, they too have their fair share of land problems. In the hinterland area, there is also problem with customary land ownership, because I mean the contours of what constitutes customary land and the inventory of customary land and all of that has not been done. I know when they passed the law in 2018, the Land Rights Act, they said that within 24 months, the land authority was going to do an inventory of all customary land. But those are things I'm not aware if they've done it and stuff like that. But the rules are not really clear, because as you move from one community to another, the issue about who owns it and the fact that it's relying on oral history is also a problematic area. But I know that it's something that is being talked about. It is a lot. It's really a problem. Myself can't wrap my head around it, but we'll see, over time how it improves.
Thank you. And Councillor Joel, Anthony Freeman is talking about taking inventory of land in Liberia. He's not sure if that has been done. If you look at all the 4 categories, do you know whether we have clear inventory of the lands in Liberia to know this one is customary, this one is government land, this one is private land? Can that be one of the sources of the conflict we're having with land ownership in Liberia?
So the Land Rights Act that was passed has a requirement that the government of Liberia would go ahead within 36 months to ensure that they call it a survey to confirm boundaries and actual ownership of the property, particularly customary land. And so immediately after the passage of the act, the government of Liberia was mandated to go ahead and conduct the surveys to ensure that land ownership boundaries and whatnot will be formally established. That has not been done. And it is not the interpretation other people are having, which is wrong, is that they're thinking that the native people or the customary people or the landowners will be the one to pay the money to go ahead and do the survey. No, the law requires that the government of Liberia, through the Liberian Land Authority, will go ahead and conduct those surveys to make sure that the government can, in a distinct manner, able to establish that this is a map, that this portion of the map constitutes customary land. This portion of the map constitutes public or government land. And this portion of the map constitutes what you call it, private ownership of private land. That has not been done. That's one of the problems. The second problem with that is creeping up, that has been there years, it's a little bit better outside of Morovia and perhaps Maserati County and maybe Marshall. But as Liberia develops, and the farther you go away, currently, if you're buying land from places like Sano, places like Grand Bassa, in fact, Grand Bassa County becoming a problem also. Places like Grand Bassa County, some part of the interior part, you will either be able to get genuine land as compared to the double selling or the triple sellings that are going on. I'll tell you what, the government of Liberia does not even know what it owns. That's pretty surprising. Meaning that the government of Liberia has no record to say public land in Liberia we own 1,000 acres of land, or government land in Liberia we own 5,000 acres of land, and the other Liberia is divided into 43,000 square miles. How many of the 43? What portion of the 43,000 square miles belong to the government? So the issue that is arising is not coming mostly from private land sellers. If you were privileged to leave from here and go to Liberia and bought maybe 2 acres of land from the government of Liberia, you got a better title in that. In order to trace a chain of title, you'll be able to be better defended and protected because you're buying it from an established institution. If you went ahead and bought a customary land, there's a big fuss in it, because as it stands, the boundaries, the map of Liberia has not, land map of Liberia has not captured land that actually owned by how many. You know, we got a lot of clans, we got a lot of tribes, we got Dallas. How many? Take for example, in Bon County, how many customary land there? For example, the government has not established that. And as Attorney Freeman said, there is not much investment made in the sector, in that people are not interested in doing that unless it becomes trouble. Like recently, when I'll divert a little bit, when the house of Speaker Kofa were burned down to the ground, you hear now that fire is a problem. Everybody in government now talking about fire. When ordinary people's houses were burned and they died, some of them in those houses, everybody kept quiet. So perhaps when a government official, top government official, maybe president or vice president, property is attacked, then you will see people might have interest, Liberian government official might have interest in showing that the land issue is resolved. Currently, the problem that Liberians are having, in spite of how long they've been on the land, in spite of how much development they have made on the land, is that one of the key problems is that the ordinary people are, to me, or in my mind, are represented by incompetent lawyers. Lawyers who really do not understand the difference between the actual acquisition of property and something like what they call adverse possession or squatters. And so the way they represent their clients, I got real issue with what happened at the Cali and maybe now Johnsonville, at the Cali Junction, what they call the Cali community, how the buildings, durable buildings, people who perhaps help their family to build a 4-bedroom home, 3-story building. Those buildings were all torn down. With one little boy I saw passing around and saying that that's his grandfather's property. And they have bulldozers running around the place just clearing the property. I wonder who advises President Joseph Boakai, because this is an issue. If people are on their land, bought the property and have been there for more than 10 years and publicly developed the property, where were the owners, quote unquote owners?
And would that make them legitimate owners of the land because they developed the land were in possession of that piece of land in a period of 10 years or so?
So acquiring property in Liberia, maybe it will lead us to the push on the outline of acquiring property in Liberia. Acquiring property in Liberia can come from the purchasing of the land and the issue of the deed for that piece of property.
Right.
It could be either by gift, it could be a gift, it could be a grant, it could be from a will, or it could be through public land sale or customary land sale or land sold by government. Now, to answer your question, the fact that I'm making an example of the Cali Junction, Cali community property.
Right.
I want to say 13.5 acres of land that this claimant, young man, is claiming. And people being on that, also understand that the occupants have been, good number of the occupants, almost all of them, have been there, have been on that land more than 10 to 15 years. Now, under our laws, the property law in particular, the public notorious and overt occupancy of a piece of property, the cultivation and the development of that property in the public view, when the owner sits by, no matter, unless it is doing the work, unless there is some force majeure, unless there is something that prevents them from seeing that the property is encroached upon. And buildings I saw in the Cali community constructed there. So the law then provides that after and taxes are paid on the piece of property. People who got maybe a house plot, 1 lot, 2 lots, 1 acre, pay their taxes regularly to the government of Liberia. Within a period of 10 years, when that happened, with the development of the property, whether partially or fully, the land revert to those who sit on it or have been squatting on it for the period of 10 years or so, paying taxes and develop the property as it is. They get to acquire that property by what the law requires as adverse possession. You sit there, you look at me, I occupy your property. I bring in bag of cement, blocks, everything. I build there. I'm paying the taxes. I pay for over 10 years. Within a period of 10 years,
even if you don't have a legitimate deed to that, because of that period and investment you made, you have gained legal ownership to that piece of land. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Under the law of adverse possession, the mere fact that I exercise color of title, I don't have paper, but I go there, I building, I constructing, I build my foundation, I build my walls, I build my house up to roof level, I build it up, I zing it, I put in all of the glasses, I move in with my family, I pay the taxes every year, consistent with the property law, to the LRA. Within a period of 10 years, you are presumed to have abandoned that property.
All right, let me come in on the issue of adverse possession.
Yes, please, because we have
so adverse possession is provided under our civil procedure law, but I don't think necessarily under the Land Rights Act. But the issue is when you go to court and you claim adverse possession, you can claim another by another means. Okay, what I mean, you can say you bought the land and you claim adverse possession. You can say you got squatter right and you claim adverse possession. You can do any of those things. When you go to court on adverse possession, you can only claim adverse possession. Meaning that, yes, I've been here and it's basically 20 years. But there is a problem. Let me tell you the real problem there. Normally, it is the issue of the land is basically because of the delay in land cases. So those cases can be in court, going through court. And the average Liberian citizen will say, oh, why can't that court will finish? Why can't that case will finish? Or when it will happen, so in fact, I will just be living here on the meanwhile. So in land cases, sometimes can spend 10, 15 years before final adjudication. So if you had a land problem in, let's say, 2020, and the Supreme Court hasn't really issued a ruling, the typical citizen, instead of waiting for those cases to be finalized, will continue to build, develop the property on condition that by the time it happens, the person will come and will pay the person money back. And sometimes because there is a lot of animosity, by the time the person wins the case, they don't want money from them, they don't want anything, they just want to clear them from the land because they have insisted on using the land and developing the land, even though they had no legal title. So for you to claim adverse possession, you can't claim adverse possession, squatter right. You can't claim adverse possession and say you bought the land. You have to say that I don't own the land, I've never owned the land, but I made it vacant, and I've been using it since then, and I've not seen anybody coming here. And it's very difficult because most times the person who owned the land will have either written, will have attempted to sue, but because the Supreme Court takes forever to come down with these cases, so the 10-year or the 15-year time, people are developing the land. When the land finally is given to the rightful owner, he is not in the position to negotiate with anybody. He just goes there with a bulldozer and clear everybody from there. So that's what you see happening now in the Cali Junction area.
Yeah, stay on the Cali Junction. Let me read something here, and then I will bring Anthony Johnson in for his perspective on this. In Liberia, adverse possession refers to a legal concept where an individual can acquire ownership of private land through continuous and uninterrupted occupation for a specified period of time.
20 years.
Key points, it said 15 years, according to what I'm reading, and you may be right. Yeah. Here are the key points related to adverse possession in Liberia. 1, duration. To claim adverse possession, the occupant must remain on the land for at least 15 years without any claims by the legitimate owner. This is by law. Now I talk about the process. The person moves onto the private land on any asserted claim of right. They maintain continuing possession for the required period, and it is specified here 15 years. After this duration, the illegal occupant becomes the rightful owner. So, Anthony Jensen, you understand the concept. Now, my understanding is that this person claiming this piece of land now got an order from the court for which they are bulldozing the property of these people who have maintained continuous ownership of the property for over 15 years. And this law is saying they are the legitimate owner. Did the judge who issued this order, is he in error?
Well, first of all, when we studied property law under Councillor Kobe Johnson, I will agree with Freeman. The time duration, I don't know what the law is supposed to change. People are, it was actually 20 years. But there are elements that constitute adverse possession. The first thing is, before you even do anything or claim adverse possession, you must have notoriously moved on a set of property. Now, that word notorious is not an easy thing. There might have been a fight, there might have been a real physical struggle. Because if you go to court on adverse possession, the Freeman said, there's a lot of elements you have to prove. Did you move on a piece of property? Let's assume the property at the Cali Junction is what we're talking about. Did you notoriously move in there? There must be pictures to show how you move on a piece of property.
And I'm not trying to interrupt. Do we know whether they moved to that particular property notoriously? Maybe during the war they were displaced and they decided living there. Could that constitute?
Well, I do not know the particular claimant, but I know for certain that that area has been in conflict for a long time. I think the conflict there and then that even include the Assembly of God Church.
Okay.
Yeah. So the issue here for me, I think we should focus on is property right in Liberia. Adverse possession cannot be strongly a means to own property in Liberia. It is only Liberian laws, but I would think that if the courts will get involved, there are procedural steps, there are elements to be proven. So we that discussing these matters, we cannot have, or we cannot speak more to the case.
So if all the elements are proven, no issue. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
I have no idea. I have no facts to what we're talking about. The land that is on the Cali Junction area, I do not know the facts and circumstances.
No, I'm just asking in the case where all the elements for adverse possession are
if the
met.
elements are proven, of course, I mean, the judge can grant any party a right of ownership. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And Councillor Jewel, today's particular Kali Junction case we're talking about, do we know whether all the elements of adverse possession have been met by these occupants? Or those claiming to be legitimate owners now, do we know?
You know, I want to clarify the explanation from Attorney Jason.
Okay.
Attorneys Jason and Freeman.
Okay.
As to what constitutes adverse possession.
Okay.
And I want to read the law. In fact, Attorney Freeman said that it is not contained in the Land Right Act.
Yeah, I said I wasn't sure.
No, you say you're not sure what is the it's in.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
It is part of the Land Right Act, and it's not as explained by Attorney Jason by saying that you must notoriously take possession of the land. You don't have to fight with anybody to take possession of the land. The law on adverse possession says that the person claiming adverse possession by any means, that's what the law said. It didn't say, just say, I went there as a squatter. It said by any means must show that he or she moved onto the land and have been in occupancy of the land for 20 or more years.
Okay.
By any means. Whether you claim that you bought the property from Joel, or you bought the property from Dennis, or you bought it from where, by any means.
No, Councillor Joe, I think I would differ with you respectfully. Adverse possession is a doctrine. It's a legal doctrine. Now, if you rely on a piece of citation, it's not enough. Let's assume you are a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in a case, and you claiming on adverse possession. We're going to leave that citation you're giving, and we define what adverse possession is, and draw the attention of the court or the jury to make a determination, and that is the education we have to provide.
But Anthony Johnson, I thought adverse
possession, you must have notoriously moved on the property. You don't
Anthony Johnson, I thought adverse possession is a legal concept that is defined.
Right.
So what definition are you talking about?
Yeah, I think what you were saying that adverse possession is more a doctrine than a statutory law.
I agree.
You understand what I mean?
People
so
in the statute.
The statute, when you go to court, the statute is there, but the practicality of what happened has to be demonstrated in court. And I'm saying, if you go to court, you can't be claiming adverse possession and at the same time say I got D. You can't be claiming adverse possession and say I got squatter right. You have to claim that you don't own this land per se. But the fact that you have lived there for 15, 20 years and nobody have come to you to claim ownership, so you are now the owner. That's how it works.
And so my question,
yeah,
can one obtain D through adverse possession after?
No. You don't obtain it by way of D. You obtain it by.
So you meet all the criteria. You live there for 20 years. You develop the land, so you can make claim based on adverse possession. Can you thereafter say I need a D because I have never?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really had an experience with that, but I guess once you have established legitimate ownership, you can now transfer it to other persons. But like I told you, what the real problem in Liberia is the delay of court cases, not adverse possession. I don't really recall people winning cases on adverse possession. What I know is that between the time the case starts and when it ends, sometimes it takes like 10 to 15 years. And in that 10 to 15 years, there's a lot of animosity, acrimony between the parties.
Meaning during that period, there's contention. The ownership of the land.
Yes.
Okay.
So when the person who wins the case finally wins the case and has the go ahead from the court, he is in no mood to have discussion with the people on the land. He takes his bulldozer with the court authority he just clears everybody from there. Because so the real problem is fast adjudication of land cases, not land cases getting stuck in the court for 20 years or more. That is the problem. Okay,
All right.
and until because while the case is in the court, other people are still developing the land. They still building, story building, they still doing a whole bunch of things, and the owner is passing by and telling them, one fine day I will clear this place. One fine day I will clear this place.
So, Anthony Freeman, is your argument that the fact that this matter is in court has not been decided by the court?
Yeah.
A person occupying the land cannot claim ownership of the land through the concept of adverse.
No way.
The case was a matter pending before the court.
Because you are on notice that there is an owner. In adverse possession, you have no notice of an owner.
In other words, the person claiming ownership did not abandon a piece of land.
No.
Just that the land was in a dispute.
Can I say something?
Mostly that's what is occurring in Liberia. That's why you see after the court ruling, somebody takes a bulldozer and goes there and say, I will clear everybody out because for the past 10, 15 years, I've been telling you not to, to continue to develop this land because it's my land. But since you people are resistant, now I have a court authority. I don't want money from you. I don't want your building. I just want my land. So I will raise the whole place down to the ground.
Can I say this?
So let me
on adverse possession. Can I say this? On adverse possession, when someone forcefully occupies another person's property as a squatter, that person is on that piece of property. That person should be ousted. Because that person entered the property, the law says 20 years, that person can begin to even fight to get a deed for that piece of property. So you, the owner, it's not about passing around and saying, hey, this is my land you own, I will take it from here one day. And
but squatter is given by the local government. So squatter is defined under Liberian law, is given by the local agency.
Squatter rights, I know people
I disagree. Squatter rights has to be given by a government authority to say you can, but when you move on a vacant land or you move on a land without ownership, it's not squatting. It may be squatting in an ordinary sense, but the legal sense of squatting, somebody have to give you the right to squat.
No.
What are you talking about?
Can we come back?
You are a squatter when you advancedly move on someone's
No. Squatter, you are given the right by a certain authority or a provincial authority to squat on that land. They give you a paper.
Can I learn, Anthony Freeman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Move on your property forcefully. And I get a squatter meaning I do everything to protect that place. You can't even fight. You run away, you go back. You don't get me out. Instead of going to court for the court to kind of remove him from the property, you didn't do all of those things. You can't, we get serious tussle. I still get grounded. If I stay on that property as a squatter for 20 years, my brother, if you go to court, the element of adverse possession, that would be my own way of fighting until that 20-year period has expired.
But you're messing it up. It's the city and it's the local government that gives you the right to squat. That's why it comes from squatter right. It's not something you decide on your own. I can't give you a chance because you have your time. The squatter right as it works in Liberia. Let's say City Hall. Some kind of vacant lot is there and maybe for whatever reason not using. The city authority sometimes give people the right to squat. They give you some paper to say, okay, you can squat here and this and that. So that right now, because of lack of regulation, people now squat there, they build permanent structure, they even try to lease, rent, and sell. So, but you can't get that thing just by moving there. Squatter right under Liberian jurisprudence is some kind of government authority, either city or provincial government will give you that right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Let me come back.
Councilor Jewett, please.
We're going astray by talking about squatter right. The issue here is any Liberian who moves publicly onto a piece of property, whether he cultivates that property, development on that property, partially or fully, and presents himself as having any color of right by any means. That's what the law says. That person, without being notified to leave, that person went ahead and paid the taxes on that piece of property and has occupied the property consistently for 20 years, or that within the period of 10 years, he had been unchallenged, undisturbed on that piece of property. When a lawsuit is filed against him or them, which I think could be applicable in a Catholic community case, the owner forfeit the property owner waiver and laches, because the owner or owners did little or nothing to ensure that his property was not encroached upon, and I mean he is applying to a female also, and so within a period of 10 years or 20 or more years, adversely, the occupant or occupants of such property will be declared to be in possession, rightful possession on that property by the courts of Liberia for the failure of the owner to proceed to institute proceedings against those that occupy the property. Attorney Freeman is correct, which most property owners don't do, is when the matter is in court, the 10 years or 20 years or more that is sanctioned by the law is not counted, because the matter is already before court, because enough notice were given to you, because lawsuits have been filed to evict you and your family, or the people like in the case of the Catholic community, and so you cannot claim adverse possession because of 10 years passing, because the case remains in court. No, adverse possession is nothing is done at all. The property is partially or fully developed. The owners either living in the United States and left nobody to take care of the property at all. No notice, nothing, no court proceeding, no letter written to them. By any other means, the occupants can claim adverse possession in court. And the occupants will be declared by the facts consistent with paying the taxes, up to date, developing the property, whether partially or fully. The Supreme Court will indicate in its judgment that having proved all of these elements, these factual situations, the occupants own the property not by deed, but by adversely possessing it and remain in custody of the property. Therefore, in that kind of situation, the court will either instruct the government of Liberia to issue deed to those people that have been adversely involved or occupying the property. I say there are incompetent lawyers representing such people, because I heard that in this case, there was one Councillor Brown, Thomas Brown, the current Human Rights Commission chair, represented the people who have the buildings there. I think he did a poor job, meaning that he did not, to my mind, he might have not investigated sufficiently and raised the issues squarely and clearly. Say, okay, all of the people I'm representing, they have no deed or no deeds. They have been on this piece of property for 10 years or more, have developed it, or occupied it for more than 20 years. And nothing has been done. From the record of the court, you find that no letter was written to them. You find that no lawsuit either before the magistrate court or the circuit court will ever file against them. So these people, in spite of the fact that they do not own the piece of property by deed, they've been occupying it for this long, and nothing prevented the owners from going to court. My clients own this property by adverse possession.
Thank you. And Anthony Jensen,
Yeah.
from what been reported, the occupants were not informed about this court order intended to affect them directly. Is there anything wrong with the way the order was executed? The
Again,
fact that they were not giving notice that this is what's coming your way?
That's what I said. We do not have the facts as to the particular circumstances. But what I know, in fact, the phrase adverse possession suggests that there is a conclusiveness in the timeline. So then you take possession of the piece of property. You adversely stay on the piece of property of someone until the time limitation. Let's say, for example, 20 years, the bill I knew that I read, it was 20 years. I don't know for now. But it meant that when you stay on someone's property for 20 good years, one day after the 20 years, you can go to court and get possession of that. That's why it's called adverse possession. You get title thereafter. But while you are on the property, you are adversely on the property. You are not an adverse possessor, because the time limitation has not passed. So you cannot claim adverse possession. But assuming you went there, and I use the word notoriously, you stay on that property for 20 good years. One day after the 20 years, you go to court, the court's supposed to give you title for that piece of property. Now, there's something I was reading here when Freeman was rejecting the phrase squatter right, right? Sorry, permit me. This is crap. Okay.
I mean, I read it yet.
I'll lose the stuff. Okay, let me put this thing down. But there's the issue, right? No one has title right, or you cannot claim adverse possession. When you're using the word adverse possession, it means then that all the elements are met. So then you have title to the property by adverse possession. But someone who spent 10 years on a piece of property, you are not entitled to adverse possession. You cannot even say I'm adversely possessing the property, because adverse possession is not an end in itself. There are series of things that are supposed to happen before you think about, okay, this is my property. Now, the issue I agree with the two lawyers, distinguished lawyers, when they said as long the man who claimed ownership of the property files a lawsuit, that procedural steps, those elements that are required, where you're supposed to be on the property for 20 years, that come to an end, because there's someone who say you own a piece of property, you must move, and the only means that person has is by the way of court. But if you just passing it around, oh, my property, one day I'll move it from here. You pass it around today, the man keep building this place up. The next day you come and say, I'll move you. Now, there's another way. If I know I'm occupying the property for adverse possession, when I see you bringing the rate, I will dodge you, right? You don't serve me. You don't serve me nothing, although you've been in court. But it's no proof of service to me. On the 20-year passes, hey, forget it. I'm going to go for my title. Now, the issue, we should not even be dwelling on this thing for a long time, because property issue in Liberia is squarely based on the wrong approach. Some people go and buy some of the property without even doing an investigation, and they won't take ownership of the property. I know somebody who was even in the state right now, go to Liberia, spend huge amount of money just for a piece of property when you are not even done an investigation. After you found out the property belongs to somebody else, the fight begins. So all of this situation, we should be dwelling on how Liberians, the conning activities on land rights, even the very courts, people are giving, lawyers will go and even face some kind of a fake deed on behalf of their client. These are some of the things we should be discussing here.
And that's why we're trying to come to talking about the registration of these, because it has been reported that some people, either the person they hire to process their deeds will not complete the process. And so once that is not completed, you don't have ownership to the land legally.
Of course.
So, Anthony Freeman, how is this much of the problem as compared to people reselling land, not completing the registration process of legally obtaining the deed to show legal ownership of the land?
I think that is a minority of the case.
Okay.
I think the lot of the cases in Liberia is double selling, double buying, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I put that to lack of investment in the sector. For example, computers have been around for the past, I think, 30, 40 years.
I agree.
What stops us from computerizing our stock of land? Because the stock of land is fixed. You know, it's 43,000 square miles. So you put it on a computer and you allocate all the land, who own it, public land, customary land, private land, and as it changes hands, the computer keep track of, you know, the thing changing hands. Also, too, when it comes to buying the land, there should be a prerequisite, for example, that people should do like title search, and maybe the court can issue some kind of disclaimer that, okay, this land is owned by this person and stuff like that. What we find in Liberia is that when somebody wants to buy land, they just go around and look for a seller, and two of them sit down, no investigation. One person buys, one person sells, and they go and register it. If there is no opposition, you got land. Only for a few years down the line to discover that, well, you don't really have a land because somebody else is owning it. But if the law requires that you do a title search, or you get a clearance from the probate court or from the justice ministry or wherever it is, or the land authority, then it will cut down a lot of the conflict. Because if you are now compelled to do a title search before paying for land or before the land transaction can go through, then if there were problems, you will find the problem. But what we have in Liberia is we have for the past maybe 40, 50 years, whatever, not any significant reform have been done, whether to computerize the system, whether to change the way the transaction is conducted so that there is an investigation, or maybe there is an insurance. For example, you can introduce insurance in the purchase of land so that if anything doesn't go through, the person does not lose the land. But there is no renewal. I mean, even this Land Rights Act is just a regurgitation of the property law along with some aspect of the forestry law and other things like that. But there is nothing in my mind significantly revolutionary that is going to go at the heart of reducing the problem. I know that they came up with a criminal conveyance law, yeah, but that law is basically intended to punish people when they carry on fraudulent activity. But what happens is that most of the time, the land problem ends up in a civil court because the two parties are claiming ownership. So while two parties are claiming ownership, you can't accuse anybody of committing fraud until you establish that one person is fraudulently claiming the ownership. So we really have a problem, but that problem is because we have not invested in the sector. We have not utilized computer technology. We have not reviewed our regulation to compel people to do a title investigation before purchase of land. So there are a lot of things that we have not done. And as the end of the result of it is that for the past 40 or 50 years, what we have is constant, repeated, continuous land conflict. You know, and maybe if we adopt some additional measure, maybe it might improve. But for now, that's what we see.
And so, Councillor Jewer, we are all aware of these land conflicts, land disputes, troubles, fights. Now, in this case, we have a bulldozer breaking down people's homes and people getting hurt. People were not notified. The court, even the court did not notify these individuals. How do we find solution to this? I'll consider this as a crisis. Everyone is crying. It's a crisis. How do we solve it? What are some ideas to solving this problem legally?
You know, there's a paper that was written, I think, in 2014, a research paper on Liberia and land ownership. That paper is entitled Smell, No Taste.
I like the title.
And that paper conclusively held that unless the government of Liberia and the people of Liberia find solutions to the issue of land ownership in Liberia, the next civil war will grow out of land and land ownership. That was the warning statement that was in that paper. Let me go back and tell you that the problem of land ownership in Liberia is not just people double selling. That's part of the problem. That's part of the major problem. The problem surrounding double selling and fraudulent selling also has to do with dishonest government officials, including the presidents of Liberia not even knowing what the government of Liberia owns as public land or private land, including the president of Liberia signing deeds, more than 2-3 deeds, for one piece of property, allegedly given to King Barclay and Chief Barclay and Sons. President Totman will sign one deed. Let's start with Edwin J. Barclay will sign one deed. After President Arthur Barclay will have signed one deed. President Totman will have signed one deed. Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf will have signed another deed as president of Liberia. Or recently, President Weah will have signed a deed without understanding whether the property in question exists. Whether there is, instead of ordering the Ministry of Lands and Mine and the Ministry of Justice and Public Works to work together to ensure before the president sign a deed to some tribal group of people, with all due respect to them, that the property exists. You know, when I was a young boy going to school, I lived in Johnsonville. I lived in Mount Barclay. And that place was so underdeveloped. 1969, 1970, the place was so undeveloped that nobody was talking about who owned land in that place. I went to a school called Leopardtown Elementary School, right on the road in Mount Barclay. When we come from Ete Green House, you bend the curve somewhere. Right? We used to go steal a plum, so I know something about that one. So by now, there are two families, or many people call themselves the Kakor family. I remember those people, the Kakor family, and then there's another family, I think, the Ball family. Gola, Basso, Mamban, Basso, all people around that place.
My client in that terrain has the original deal. Let me let you know now.
See that?
So
we went after stealing people in our place. They just went building properties upon property. When we got ready for them, we cited most of them. Some of them refused to come. Again, that's a big case about that. Let me
add something that might interest you. The whole of Boys Town, you know Boys Town on Rafi Highway?
Mm-hmm.
The whole of Boys Town is about 25 acres of land. That place is butchered by people who went in, including my cousin.
Yeah, seeing formerly studying.
They claim to own the whole 25 acres of land, including former Speaker Tyler. If you ever went to Liberia when Speaker Tyler was Speaker Tyler, the light alone from his house to the road told you that somebody big lives around here. But fortunately for me, in 2020, I was in Liberia. I went there January, and the COVID-19 caught me there. While I was there, there is a lady, I think she said McCready. I think her name is McCready from the Marshall area. She's in Minnesota. And maybe she's still alive. Sent her husband, who filed a lawsuit against everybody in Boys Town for the 25 acres of land. My cousin came running to me because he said, "My man, you are our family lawyer. Something happened here. We ain't got money to pay you, but you need to help us." They held a meeting, I think several meetings. They invited us, we attended the meeting. There are about 96 people that claim ownership to that Boys Town, including Speaker Tyler. The people sue, and I prepared the answer for the 25 or 96 people. But prior to that, I have invited them to bring me their chain of title, each of them.
Right.
We had meetings, they did not adhere to it. I wrote them, my office wrote them. Up to today's date, even though they are my client, not a single one of them, including Speaker Tyler, have brought me any other deed beside the deed he had in his hand.
And why you think that was so?
Because they took the
But that's why I said investment in the sector, there should be a regulation that mandate that before you sell land, you should do.
It's like everybody playing hard mouth.
Before you sell land, you should be able to do a title search. You should be able to get clearance, for example. You can get clearance.
Let me
But if I'm just saying, look, we live, for example, you live in the US here. You might have people having issue with contract and other things, but you don't see land problem like that. Why? Because they have utilized technology, they have improved the law, the system, so that before you transfer land, there are prerequisites. So mandate that people should do certain prerequisite steps and get certain prerequisite clearance in order to sell the land. But not two persons just sit down in a coffee shop, one person pays the money, another person draw up a contract, and the next thing you know, they are registering land. We are involving the government. Then they go to register the land. After a while, then they realize, oh, this land is being claimed by somebody. But you should have done that search. But if the law is changed and it mandates people to do the search and do the investigation prior to the sale of the land, it will help. I also think computerizing the title ownership, for example, people can do online investigation. If you want to practice, you want to like buy a piece of land. If the information is online, real time, somebody can punch in the land dimension. You know, I think they got the magnitude and all of that. Punch it in, and it can tell you who owns the land. Yeah, and you can know whether the seller has the right to sell it. But we're not investing in the sector. Our officials, they buy $100,000 cars.
Let me come.
And I won't make the point because it goes down to why there's no investment. The people from the Justice Ministry, the court, they would rather buy $100,000 cars and ride it. But to spend that money on an IT consulting firm to say, look, computerize our land title, registry and other things like that, they will not do that. And that has been consistent from regime to regime. You can put it on just George Weah. When the Unity Party was there, they could have computerized that whole land system. They don't, because part of it is being kept at the Center for Documents and Records, and another part of it is at the probate court. They're just two offices. Computerize the system, put it on a map, enter in a computer so that anybody can go online, put in the coordinates of the land, and find out who owns the land. But we will not do it. So we keep having confusion, and officials would rather just waste that money, buy a fancy car, travel, face the office, but not invest in what really matters.
Let me conclude.
If I can just, before Joey come in, I feel strongly that every private owner of a piece of land has right to sell anytime. The issue here is,
you mean anytime we are any regulation in terms of checkpoints before selling, you can just get on a coffee table and sell?
Yeah, because there's an end result. When you buy the piece of property, you must go and register and probate. At those ends, where you must register your deed, they who are over there should know whether the identical land has been sold before another person is buying the property.
If it's not computerized, it's very difficult to know.
Well, I think that's where our focus should be. But to have a computerized system where, for example, every private owner of a piece of land, before you sell, you go to government first, and then when you are done, you do this and do that. I think there's a system set up already. It's just that it's been abused.
It's not working for the past 40, 50 years. No, why there's so many land cases.
The dishonesty is with even us lawyers. Because we all know the procedural step. You don't just take ownership like that. There are procedural steps when you meet those, like the brother started saying, the moderator started saying earlier. What are the procedures of owning a property? It's not just going survey and all of those stuff. When you are done with those things, you go and do a registration. Now, a good buyer beware. It's part of our law system. When you go to buy a piece of property, you don't just go to buy because you get money to go and purchase. If you buy a piece of property, you don't ask, beware of the circumstances involved. So when you go to registration, they tell you, oh, you bought the land. Oh, the land being sold 10 or 20 years ago. This is why it's in the archive. Then why are you happy? You are the veteran because you should have known better before. So some of the issues are not what we have. It's us, lawyers And even those administrators, like Jay was saying, I will agree with him from the top to the bottom, from president downward. We have land commissioners in all of the counties. The land of Liberia is divided into counties. In those counties, you have districts. And those districts have clans. And those clans has, what do you call it, what? Towns or what have you. So technically, the land is being apportioned. What is happening with us now is those who are leading. And that goes to the field system we have. Yesterday, people were learning to become somebody in government. Today, nobody wants to learn. Nobody wants to go sit in the classroom. I just hoping that I get a relative of being in government that will appoint me. So someone who is a land commissioner has no idea as to what land business is. All they know is I'm a land commissioner. That's all they want. The next thing is they only want to infringe on the right of other people. They are not investigating. You must say now we're discussing this thing is because we have some technical sense about it. That's why we're discussing it. So the president is even appointing those people. Isn't the president cares to say, well, this person will be.
You say you disagree with me, but your statement looks like you agree with me. That there is no need for regulation.
I said already, you're talking about computerizing the entire system. I'm talking about private rights.
But what's wrong with technology? Applying technology.
I'm not talking about technology, but what I'm saying to you is if you have your land, you have a right to sell your land anytime. The only thing that you will have to blame yourself about.
No, because land is restriction. For example, you can sell land without a written instrument. So there is always restriction on transfer of land.
Right. That's a quick
can I come back in?
Please.
The right to property ownership is a constitutional right.
Right.
It cannot be restricted by regulations.
Right.
It cannot be restricted by saying you go get clearance from this government agency, that government agency. They want.
I agree with you 100%. That's
you sell it as you wish.
Yeah.
As you have. Property buyers, people who want to buy property, because they are not technically inclined, they must consult law officers.
Lawyers, right.
Lawyers. And I mean competent and honest lawyer, because we got a lot of quacks among us. We got a lot of people who basically are incompetent. We got a lot of people who will sit and agree and write out fake deeds along with the client to own piece of property that they do not own. We got surveyors that were the scene surveyor that
right. Those are the problems.
For Attorney Freeman will survey the scene property for Councilor Jewel 3 years down the road. That scene surveyor, the Liberia Land Authority had many crooks in it. People who were surveyors and selling and reselling. They are the occupants, they are the officials in the Liberian Land Authority. As long as you can bribe them, they will give you the stamp. So even you can computerize it as you're talking about, which will be very helpful. But how do you know that a property still exists, even though it says lag number 4 has been sold to Jewa? How do you know Jewa has not sold it? Mm-hmm. It's impossible. There need to be enough to answer your question. More investigation need to be done.
Anthony, I want to come back. My perspective on the law, and the reason why I'm kind of keen on this topic, is more leaning towards how the law can engender economic growth. So when I analyze law, that's the perspective. So the idea that you have a law that is not working, that is dysfunctional, that is causing a lot of conflict, and to say, oh, we can't do anything much, we just have to let it be, I disagree, because the law is meant to serve the public and to improve our social interaction. So if you have a land problem that is repeated, continuous, you have to step in and introduce additional laws, additional statute, additional regulations to solve the problems. Okay? You can't say we can't. So the idea that every constitutional right is limited to some extent. For example, you have a right to property ownership, but you have to acquire it. So you have a right to speech, but sometimes you have to seek permission, for demonstration. So every right, constitutional right, is not unlimited. There are limits. So put a limit on the acquisition of land in a sense that you can have prerequisites to selling land. You can pass a law, say, okay, before you sell a land, you need to get clearance from the probate court, or you need to get clearance from the Center of National Documents. Okay? So people, Mama, the reason why some countries are better than other countries is because they continue to change their laws.
Nobody is
give me a break. They continue to change the law. For example, in the US, you have at least 27 amendments of the Constitution. 27th Amendment, at least. The problem with Liberia is that we write our laws, we don't check it to know if it's functioning, whether it's achieving its objective, and whether there is a need to update the law. Law is a social construct to solve a social problem. When you write a law, and let me make this point. When you write a law and it's not working the way you want it to work, you have to go back and revise the law. So if you have 50% of your cases going to court on land problem, it tells you that the current law that you have is not working, the current structure. So it behooves you to either improve the law, introduce technology, introduce other things that will minimize the conflict. That's my point.
Attorney Freeman,
Attorney Freeman has the point.
you can introduce technology. You can ensure that people who are selling the land are selling the land they own. You cannot inhibit their right to sell when they wish to sell.
Right.
That is constitutional unless you amend the constitution.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying that at all.
He's saying something. He's saying
you should get clearances. You should go to the other agency. Nobody who owns property. If I own 20 acres of land in Grand Bassa County where I'm from, I don't need government agency to give me
the constitution. Yes, absolutely.
So you got a right to demonstrate, right? Do you just go on the road and demonstrate, or do you seek clearance from the Ministry of Justice?
Attorney Freeman.
Attorney Freeman, if I have a legitimate deal, a piece of land or a lot or maybe acres of land, isn't that enough for me to have the right to sell?
But I'm not saying you don't have a right. I'm only saying that
what else you think the person would need to be allowed to sell the land?
For example, I'm saying introduce additional procedures for sale. Look, everything the fact that you have a constitutional right does not mean that it can be regulated. Every constitutional right, I just gave you an example of demonstration. You have a right to demonstrate, but the police will want you to give them notice.
What is the procedure now?
You have a right to elect your leaders, but you have to vote. Not so.
What is the procedure right now to selling land? And because you are suggesting that whatever procedure that grants wants the right
is not working.
The seller is not enough.
Yes, I feel like right now, if two parties want to buy and sell land, they just get together. One person gives the other person money, and the other person sign the papers, and they take it to the court and they register it. There is no preliminary inquiry. So I'm saying introduce technology one. Introduce requirement that maintains that in order to transfer land, there must be preliminary inquiry. Okay.
There are procedures.
It wouldn't tell you to take 1 or 2 additional steps.
No, Freeman. When you and I decided to sell a piece of land, you want to buy a piece of land from me. After all of the negotiation, everything, there are procedural steps that are laid down, right? We have to survey that land. We have to get qualified surveyor. There are rules about even surveyors. How do we get those people to come?
My understanding that the surveyor send notice.
Right.
Owners in the area.
Right. So those are all procedural steps that are laid down. So to say
it's not working. So you improve it.
No, Freeman.
You made your point. Let you go ahead.
Yeah, there are people who are employed to look at laws. You have legislators. You have people elected. They are supposed to be reading this argument we're having. We are just like partners to the actors. Legislators themselves should be able to know that there are problems concerning land, problems concerning property generally, and they should be also the constitution we have. Can we amend the constitution? There are procedural steps. Nobody disagrees with you. The constitution can be amended. One thing we disagree with you is you cannot see the constitutional provision. You want to go down and do something else. There are regulations. When the constitution is clear, my property, I want to sell it. Then you want to create some situation to tie me into it. I will hang on the constitution and take it to court. There were cases come about.
The point I'm raising is there are procedures already, but to suggest that these procedures are not working. I'm thinking that like these procedures are not being enforced by the authority because you won't have the deed. Maybe you should be the administrator. There must be notices sent to people in the area. And the chain of registration must be followed. These are all processes that should bring somebody to the awareness that somebody is selling land as the person. So another person should have the right to question you. So that is enough procedure. It's the fact that people are not honest that you mentioned, or Anthony Freeman, people are not honest. and the laws are not being enforced to the letter. That's why we're having the issues.
So let me one of apart from the president signing without any investigation and giving out these, take Vatan case. Have you heard about Vatan case?
Oh yeah, with
I'm sure all of us here old enough to know that
yeah.
been there.
But Joey, I'm cutting you off. I said, Joseph Brother want connect 4-lane road over there. And I said from the onset of his presidential address, I say you will have serious problem with the Vatan people in that place.
Because you know about the Basso community case?
I don't know any details.
There was a lady around there called Titi Report. A very powerful Basso woman in that place. But to make long matter sure is that there are 2 existing deeds for the Vatan case. Okay. There is the 1801 and the 1906 for the same Vatan place. One is issued by President Edwin J. Bagley, and the other one is issued by Arthur Bagley.
So which one will be respected and recognized?
One is the Cornell family. The Cornell, the sheriff,
the Cornell in the Vatan, right?
Family have the 1906 deed. I'm a lawyer in the case, so I know about it a lot.
Okay.
Have the 1906 deed. The Kiadi family, that the Vatan people on the right. When you enter Vatan coming from Johnson Street, the right hand side, all the property on the right hand side, the Vatan people claiming it. All the property on the left hand side, all the property on the left hand side, the Vatan people. All the property on the right hand side, the Cornell family claiming it. To the point that they have gone to court out in a case where somebody was killed and were defending the Kiadi family. I represented the Kiadi family. And the Supreme Court of Liberia, that's another issue. The Supreme Court of Liberia has not been able to definitively decide the Vatan case and say who owned it.
To this date.
To this date. So the Cornell people are collecting rent from Lebanese people on their side. Whenever one person crosses the road to go to the other side to collect rent, there's an issue. So the government of Liberia itself is part of the problem in why land issue is being fraudulently conducted in Liberia, because there are several deeds issued. There's a place called Grable after Cocoa Factory. I'm lawyer for those people. They came to me with 2 different deeds for 6,000 acres of land. One of the D is 1875. One of the D is 1974.
Councilor, well, I hope your client information has been disclosed here.
And gentlemen,
all I'm saying is that part of the problem, because if we have 2 Ds for one piece of property coming from the Republic of Liberia, or the people, as Attorney Freeman was saying, that there need to be regulation. I don't think there need to be any regulation. I think people who are buying property should find competent lawyers, consult with a lawyer to do title research. Given the right, they can sell their property.
Gentlemen,
there are people who let me get close on this one. There are people in Liberia who call themselves administrators. When somebody died and did not leave a will, left a piece of property, that person the probate court appoints to administer the property is called administrator. Do you know the administrators are selling property over and over and over again? Because the letter of administration, the time frame which is given for 1 year expires, and they continue to use it
to sell land. Gentlemen,
that's the point. That's the point I'm making.
Gentlemen,
if you have a precondition that before you sell a land, you go and get a clearance, it will solve that problem. The idea that you have a law is not working and you continue to operate with it, even though it's not working, and say the problem will get solved, the problem will not get solved because you keep doing the same thing over and over. That's not working.
Gentlemen,
you can draft a piece of law, and introduce it.
Gentlemen, thank you. Gentlemen,
you want your father property before you sell it. You go get regulation for any government agency.
I think we're talking on a national level.
Gentlemen, we have to leave it there because of time. Gentlemen, we have to leave it there because of time. I can't thank you enough. I'm enjoying the discussion. I think we are all learning the law. This is a serious matter. Maybe Focus on Liberia will reach out to you to have part 2 of this discussion to provide the education. We have a caller on the line. We want to reduce our show to 1 hour, 30 minutes down. We're making effort to get them on the radio. So we will stop to 1 hour 30 minutes from there. Evan Morris is on the line. Mr. Morris, let me unmute you there. Go ahead, and you are live.
Thank you, Mr. Sia. I was hoping you guys were going to touch on this case with the Lloyd case, but maybe I was not the topic of discussion tonight. But I have a question. My family owns land in Timber Village area, and we live in the States primarily. So we had a administrator, as I think Councilor Gilbert was saying, which is my auntie. And somebody went on that land and bought, I don't know, almost a third of the land. I think she said she paid like $6,000 for that piece of land. So, and that person, because it was, I hate to say it, but it was my mother's king's man, and that person was begging my mom because they went to the police station. My auntie, being my mother's representative, took the deed. Everything was fine. So they asked the other person, "Where is your deed?" And he couldn't produce his deed. But money had changed hands between he and whoever sold him the land. So my question here is, who is at fault, and how can somebody, in America, I know there's something in the law called something like, purchase of value in due course or something like that, where you can't buy $1 million car for $1 because then it's either stolen or something that is not right. You can't buy something that's $1 for $1 million because it could be like money laundering. So if somebody is selling you land as a purchaser, is it on you, incumbent on you to do your due diligence to make sure that the value of the land that they're selling you is commensurate with the actual value of what that land will go for in any other area, factoring the location and whatnot. Because that person bought that land presumably legitimately, and they didn't get the right documentation, they didn't get a deed beforehand, but he exchanged money with that person who he claimed that he bought the land from. At the end of the day, my mother settled with them that we allowed them to have the land because we were in the States. Eventually, we built a rental property on the other half of the land. But the reality is, people buying land without getting the proper documentation within itself is that illegal, or is on the seller who is purporting to be owner of the land? That would be my question.
Thank you. Who want to go first? 30 seconds each. We have 3 minutes to close.
I think with that case, I think it's resolved already. But we advise anyone who want to sell a piece of property, find a lawyer. There are good lawyers in Liberia. Investigate to finding even a good lawyer, good property lawyer. You definitely will get one before you sell the piece of property. All the other procedure, the lawyer will be able to inform you.
Thank you. Anthony Freeman?
Yeah, I just want to say the idea that you can have a problem running for 50, 60 years and not solve it is an indication of a society that is not developing, that is not growing, whether physically or mentally. I believe that we can use technology. I believe that we can revise our system of law. There is no such thing as writing a law and putting it down and say the law will work forever. Law is a social construct. You write it, you observe to see if it's achieving your objective.
Drop one piece.
If it's not achieving your objective, you kind of rewrite it, you amend it so that it can achieve the required objective. If we don't do it, we'll continue to have a situation where almost half of our problems in the legal area will be related to land matters. We just have to reform the sector.
Councilor Gerard, do you have a question for Evan Morris?
I want to answer.
Yeah, answer I meant to say. Go ahead.
In the first place, I don't think that Mr. Morris and other family members should have gone to a police station. It's a land issue, and title might be involved. People might be contesting who actually own the land. Mm-hmm. So the police station or police depot would just basically have absolutely nothing to do with that. Find a lawyer, go to court, and ensure that the property in question remains yours if you acquire it. The other thing that people that we have not said is that there are steps when you buy land in Liberia. So when you buy a piece of land, it must be by law prohibited within a period of 4 months from the date of the issue of the deed. Most Liberians who are here, maybe in a great number of Liberians in the West, will go to Liberia and buy the land without being able to do investigation to determine whether the person that's selling the land, they own it. Once they get that one deed, they don't even get the mother deed first. They get a deed for the land that they buy. There should be a mother deed. That mother deed should be, you should be able to trace it to somewhere, maybe to the Republic of Liberia. They don't ask for those. They get the one deed, and then they go to court. The probate court and probate the deed and come to America and sit down, or don't even probate the deed. Come with the deed in their hands and come and sit down and say, I own 8 acres of land in Tingle Village or 20 acres of land in Tingle Village, presuming that that property is owned by them because they have paid money for the land and the deed have been issued by the seller. If all of the steps required are not into place, you will run into problem because the property you bought may not even exist. It might have been sold a long time ago. So you must be able to research and find out where the title leaves. And when you get the land, I will advise you to go to the probate court, hire a lawyer to get to the probate court to be able to probate the deed. Investigate everything before you even purchase the land. Whether you sit in a coffee shop, you sit on Broad Street, in Hatasha, whatever it is, Benson Street, make sure that the investigation is concluded because the issue of land is an issue. And the government of Liberia, including the Joseph Boakai government now, must take the step further to investigate and make sure that all of the deeds are being issued by all of the presidents without knowing whether the land exists or not. Investigations are conducted by the Ministry of Justice, the Liberia Land Authority, and those who empower to ensure that the sale and double sale will not come about. And the probate court should have one regulation. The probate court should make sure that when letters of administration expired from those quote-unquote administrators, the deeds that presented there from property to sell, that people go to the probate court, whether it's in Kakata, whether it's in Monrovia, whether it's in Carisburg, whether it's in any part of Liberia, make sure that those deeds are not probated because the sales are double sales. Maybe, as Attorney Freeman said, and technology will help to enforce that by making sure that the court does not allow. But once you present your deed, what I know from experience, 33 years, is the judge will take the deed. Once the 3 days expire, the judge will sign and give the deed back to the clerk of court. And you receive it, you go about, you say you own land. Those things need to be checked. The government needs to be much more serious about it. Conclusively, the government needs to do the survey to confirm who owns, what is government property, what is public land, what is customary land, and so forth.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to our listeners. Wow, what an educated discussion that we had here today. And that will do it. We will put together part 2 of this discussion to continue providing the education to our people. The land issues is serious. Yes, government needs to work harder on this. We must know what land is for government, the land mass, and all that, what county, and so on and so forth. And Anthony Freeman is also right. The issue of technology will help us. You know, you can look up the land to see who is the owner, you know, whether that land is available for sale and so forth. We need to do a lot. Anthony Jensen, we can't thank you enough. Anthony Freeman and Councilor Jewel.
Before, I don't know what that's a closing. There's something we all miss here. Women rights to land property.
The people want to stop the show to 1 hour 30 minutes.
The main crossing already. I just want to throw in this. Women who are divorced, they have right to.
You're going to technical place.
That's another topic. Anthony Freeman, we promise you, we'll call you back. We'll discuss part 2 of this this land issue still. So thank you. And thank you. That will do it. We will close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians," and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
We are Liberians.